something funny happened to me. I want to tell you a story how I got a free burger when I ordered food, and use it to explain what injection vulnerabilities are. So last night I was super lazy, didn't want to cook, so I ordered food. I ordered food there before, so certain fields like the address were already filled out. But also the comment field was still filled out. And on the previous order, in the comment field, I requested a different sauce for one of the burgers. I didn't realize that and just continued and paid online. A little bit later, the delivery guy shows up and told me that he changed the sauce for the country burger as I had requested. Country burger? I didn't order one. He said, "Yeah, you did. Look here on the receipt." And I look at it and I realized what happened. The comment I wrote was printed just above the other items that I actually ordered. I used capital letters to emphasize my request back then, and I didn't notice that I just made it look like it is one of the ordered items. And so he actually thought I ordered a country burger, and the comment after it was just my modification request. I mean, looking at it now, everybody would say it's pretty clear that it's not an item I ordered. There's no price on it and it's not bold. But this is a fast food restaurant and those guys have a lot to do. It has to go fast and maybe comments are also not a common thing. I can totally see how it happened. I offered to pay for the burger, but he said it's fine. So that's how I got a free burger through an unintended burger injection or unintended social engineering attack. So what does this teach us about injection vulnerabilities in software? You see, programs are just acting on instructions that they have been given. Like a guy in a restaurant has instructions he gets from the order that gets printed out. And in this case, data, or this comment, was mixed together with business critical information. And whoever created and printed out this order didn't make it clear to the entity that processes this data that this is just a comment and not an order instruction. The bill could have been structured differently so that it's more clear. And this is always what happens with injection vulnerabilities. Let's take SQL injections. A programmer writing code that builds an SQL query and doesn't make it clear that this user data is just a string by wrapping it in quotes and making sure that no quotes can appear in the data by escaping them, then whatever processes the query can be fooled. Or cross-site scripting. The programmer writes user data into a surrounding HTML document without explicitly marking this data to just be plain text without special characters. Thus somebody can inject HTML tags like script tags and perform a XSS attack. And obviously, there are many cases in security where the underlying security issue is an injection. Yes, SQL injections and XSS have a very different impact and are very different, but only at the surface. The underlying principle is exactly the same. So whenever you place data into some other structure that gets then handed to another entity for further processing, may this be a web server, a database server, or browser, or a fast food employee, you have to make sure your data is clearly marked as what it is, just data, not an instruction.
If a company makes a transparent phone, it's pretty mandatory that I take a look at it. HTC recently popped out their translucent HTC U12 Plus. It's not totally clear, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Kinda reminds me of my Game Boy Color back in the day. Getting a close-up look at the internals, we can see a bit of the fingerprint scanner cable, and maybe a bit of the NFC. We'll have to wait for the teardown to know for sure, but I think it looks pretty sweet. If you remember last year's HTC U11, it ended up on my shelf of shame after shattering during my durability test. It was awarded the least durable smartphone of 2017. It died because there was no buffer between the curved glass and the middle frame. It looks like HTC has corrected that design flaw this year by flattening out the glass and adding an intermediary layer buffering the screen from the frame. But the only way to know for sure is to test it. Let's get started. HTC has some very unique differences in design when compared with other manufacturers, but I'll get to those in a second. First, we have the scratch test. HTC is also one of the only manufacturers who has ever used a level 8 sapphire screen on one of their phones, which is a very massive and impressive accomplishment. This particular U12 is using Gorilla Glass 5 on the display, so it'll scratch at the very normal level 6, and a deeper groove at level 7. It's pretty much what all flagships are scratching at these days. The U12 has dual front-facing cameras, which is interesting. They are both the same type of lens. There's no wide angle, just dual 8-megapixel cameras that do the whole background blurring thing. Marquez does a good job of showing off the cameras if you haven't watched his video yet. The earpiece is made of cloth, and while most manufacturers make it so the cover will never fall out, this earpiece is just held in place with some simple adhesive. With time, this might end up falling out on its own. There is no buttons down at the bottom of the screen, but if we flip the phone over, we find dual cameras protected with glass, a 12-megapixel main camera with OIS, and a 16-megapixel telephoto lens, which I'm a fan of. The more things a phone can accomplish, the better. This one also films in 4K at 60 frames per second. The plastic dual LED single-color flash is pretty flush with the back glass panel. You'll also see several microphone holes, which HTC uses to do some pretty cool 3D audio while video recording. It's pretty interesting stuff. HTC also claims an IP68 rating on the U12, but with all of these extra microphone holes, and some stuff I'll show you in a second, I have my doubts it'll work as advertised. The fingerprint scanner is invincible though, thumbs up for that. Now the sides of the phone are where things start to get interesting. They are made from metal. But the buttons along the side are not actually buttons. They don't click. They are made from metal, but surprisingly can pop off the phone body. Kinda strange. Now, granted, I understand that not everyone takes a razor blade to their phone, but it is good to identify weak points. A normal button wouldn't do this. And once the capacitive button has fallen off, it doesn't work anymore. I really doubt this will happen to anyone with normal use in real life, but a hard drop in the right spot might be a problem. I'm not a fan of this system, and I'd rather just have a real button. Now my phone won't turn off and I can only listen to things at full volume. HTC left their squeeze functionality in place and even upgraded it to EdgeSense 2. Every time you short squeeze or long squeeze the sides, something will happen. Personally, I set my short squeeze to open up my Audible app, because that's just the easiest segue into the sponsor of this video. The book I'm currently in the middle of is The Martian. I actually use Audible quite a bit. Yeah, there's a movie, but the book goes into way more detail about how the guy stranded on Mars jerry-rigs his way to survival. And the book is free, with a 30-day trial by going to audible.com/jerryrig, or texting the word jerryrig to 500-500. If you're into science and survival, it's pretty interesting. Plus, you get to keep the book even if you